Well, I do want to talk more about Granny there. I would touch on it there for a sec.
You talk about Granny. I want to talk about Taste the Future, because I had to listen to that last night. But you can.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, good then.
I did.
All right. Well, I feel bad because I know you've listened to Taste the Future by the sounds of it 2 or 3 times now.
Yes.
And I've only got through Granny once, mind you. Granny is twice as long as Taste the Future, at least.
Yeah, she is.
And
yeah,
it came out.
She's a big girl.
and she's younger too. She hasn't been around as long.
Exactly. Yeah, she's newborn.
But yeah, that was like a lot of that album reminded me of that one album we listened to, or one song we listened to near the beginning of The Eyebrow, the one about like psychedelic music research or something it was called. I forget the name of the song. It had a very colorful album cover, and it was one that you picked.
Oh, right.
And it had this, and it was like less music, more like sound effects. With
was
like
that the Doug Woods one?
I think so.
The Doug Woods one, yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that. It sounded to me like it was inspired by that to a certain degree, but at the same time,
it was a headphone album, wasn't it? Something psychedelic headphone album or something like that, and it was a lot of just sort of soundscapes and things like that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
I was hearing a lot of that in there. And like I said, the harpsichord is hard for me to get my head around, and saxophone, which is a lot of that going on in this album. But I did really, for the most part, the saxophone VST was very impressive. Like I really liked, either it's a very good VST or you're very good at manipulating it. Probably a little bit of A and B, I imagine. But it was good. Like I really enjoyed a lot of it. There's only a few times where I thought, yeah, it's kind of a cheesy sax sound, but it's hard not to sound cheesy at some point with the sax. Like it's I'm surprised, that's part of its thing, And there was certain tonality to it at first. I had a hard time getting into it because it reminded me of something I didn't like about music. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it reminded me of like movie soundtracks from like the late 80s, which is nothing wrong with that. They're just like, for me, there's something about that like always kind of makes me turn away for a minute. I have to like force myself through it, but after 4 or 5 tracks, that sensation went away. Right? So
I bludgeoned you into submission. You will enjoy this sound.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Because like there's a lot of sounds that people dismiss immediately because of like oversaturation at some point in their life, or like for me, like I grew up at a time when saxophone was everywhere. Like every band had a saxophone player when I was growing up, so it was like it was done to death, Like even on Pink Floyd albums, when I hear Dick Perry, I just kind of yawn. I'm like, oh, I listen to one of these again.
Really?
Which is hard to think.
I love that.
Well, I used to, but after I heard it 100 times, it was sort of like I get the same way with Dave Gilmour too. Don't get me wrong. Like Dave Gilmour guitar playing goes from being like brilliant to being sick of it. Like I go through like a phase, right?
Too much brilliance.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or it's because too much of anything, right? Like you can, like caviar is supposed to be amazing, but you don't want to eat it for like a bowl of it for breakfast, right? But yeah, but I was able to get through that, and then after a few songs, that sensation went away. So either it was something unique to like Voyage Drift and Inquisitor that kind of you lost a taste for, or I lost for whatever reason I was able to filter that out of my head. And the hardest part I had about it was like I was trying to keep notes. Like I took like little notes up until about, I think, Broken Music. And then I just kind of had to like just stop because I was like, I have to, because if I take notes, I'm not listening to the music, and I'm trying to work at the same time.
Exactly.
And pay attention, so I had to like do a track here, a track there. But I did it, like I liked Inquisitor, which is the one that like you had me listen to because you were afraid of the high pitch stuff.
Yeah.
Like listen to that a second time. I really liked as I wrote down, staccato Zappa stuff, where it was like just the insane speed and whatnot, and all the linking up together. And that was the only other thing that I had a hard time with at first, which I let go of eventually. Is like because you and I both know how the DAWs work and whatnot. When things get really tight together, it makes me think like I'm listening to a robot rather than a human being sometimes.
Yeah.
Which I got that sensation a bit, especially during Inquisitor. But by the time I think we got past like Humongous Engine, that wasn't bugging me anymore. But that's just one of those things that like, the quantization sometimes, or maybe it's not quantization, maybe you just go over it really a lot and make sure it's really tight. I don't know. But that's why I never judge that way, because I've had people accuse me of using quantization when I didn't, and then not noticing it when I do. They don't notice it when I do use it.
Yeah,
so it's like
it's a funny one, quantization. You've got to take your foot off the pedal sometimes and just let it be a bit kind of loose,
Yeah, exactly. But other than that, other than those two like little things that made me kind of go like, the album, like the sonic textures, the musical choices, like it was one of those albums that like I imagine people feel the same way when they listen to my music when I spend this time in this giant beast and I let it out. And it's like there's just so much going on. I got to listen to this album 3 or 4 more times, I think, to really appreciate it. And it's and a lot of the things you're saying, like in your liner notes about like the scientifically perfect sound or whatever, and like the tight bass and the 40 hertz and all this stuff. Like I can't disagree with that stuff, because I'm hearing it in there. Like there's, and it was funny. Like there's this thing about the Fab filter I hear about a lot, and I haven't I can tell you I have the Fab filter. I downloaded it, but I just haven't installed it. And partly just because it's just another thing. I just every time I download a new VST, that's something I got to spend time learning how to use. And then every VST I download is a song that doesn't get written because the time I would have spent learning, I would have spent writing. Yeah. And that's, I have more songs I know what to do with, so I should probably learn more stuff and not write so much. But it's okay. But one of the biggest criticisms I hear about Fab Filter from people is they say it sounds plasticky, and I'm not sure what that means. But I feel like I could hear that in your music. But I don't think it's a product of the filter. I think it's a product of how tight you can separate things and make things, give them their own space that gives them a rubbery sort of like synthetic sound, but which is I love it. I want to hear that more in my music. So like if anything, it made me want to do that more.
What you're hearing on that album is it's a combination of, well, first to say Fab Filter is the manufacturer of a whole suite of plugins. So there's Pro Q, which is used in the mastering on this album, which is just a very straightforward equalizer. There's Pro C, which is their compressor, which are used on almost every instrument. It was used certainly at some stage. I couldn't say on every track, but at some stage I discovered, because like you, I had Fab Filter there, and I would use it from time to time if Ozone wasn't working for me. If something in Ozone wasn't working, I would fire up a Fab Filter plugin. And I've been falling out of love with Ozone and Isotope in general. I think they've got problems. I don't know whether I don't hear any bad stuff about them online, and the YouTube community is still all 100% on side with Ozone. So I don't know. But I'd been having doubts about Ozone for a long time. I felt as though I was struggling against it. But this album's it's chock-a-block with Ozone. There's Ozone all over this album. EQ, dynamic EQ, limiter. The limiter I used a lot. The limiter's weird though. Before it works, you've got to put the sliders right down to the bottom. It's almost as though you're using up 90% of the travel, and you're actually limiting in the bottom 10% of the facility of the limiter. I just don't know how it's designed that way, but it works. So I made it work. The Fab Filter stuff I discovered yesterday when I was working on your track. I had an EQ on. I think it was the EQ. Was it the EQ or was it? I can't remember which one it was, but I had EQ, compressor, and limiter from Fab Filter on your bass, and there was a part where you're playing quite staccato, and the bass was ringing, and I was going, that bass shouldn't be ringing. I don't see it, and I was blaming the synth bass, and I was messing about with the synth bass. Then I found it was on the guitar, and it was when I took off whichever one it was, the Fab Filter, the ringing went away. So it was clearly an artifact of that plugin. Somehow I haven't got to the bottom of it yet, but I thought, I must mark that. I must remember that, because that's not right. It was as if it was creating some kind of gate or some kind of envelope, which was weird. So there's problems with every plugin, I think. I mean, the Ozone stuff, to me, I've deleted it now entirely. The only Isotope property I have now is the RX10, which I think is a different beast. I think it must be designed by a different crew, because it works in an entirely different way. It's not processor intensive. The final straw with the Isotope stuff was, I was trying to master the album. I was trying to do it in Adobe Audition, and the software is so laggy in Audition that it's unworkable. You can't use it. So I thought, right, okay, I'm going to have to try something else here. So I downloaded Wavelab, and I put Ozone into Wavelab, and it was doing the same thing. It was clearly it's an Ozone problem. So I just the other day I downloaded. I started a track, just a wee sort of test track, and I put Ozone, the EQ from Ozone. The Ozone straightforward EQ, not the dynamic EQ. I put that in, and I put Fab Filter in, the Fab Filter EQ in as well. And I had them side by side, and I had them both reading the wave, and they were agreeing on what the waveform was, but the Ozone waveform was a good 0.3 of a second behind, which means if you've got an active rhythm going boom, 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 boom like that, the Ozone waveform is reacting too slow to tell you what's actually going on. And at that point I thought, do you know what? Why have I been putting up with this? Because I'd mastered the album using the Vice Maximizer, Gullfoss, and the Pro Q from Fab Filter. And I felt as though, I don't know what you thought about the mastering, it would be difficult for you to know the difference between what I output from the DAW and what was mastered, but I thought the mastering was good. Did you think it was good?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Well, I thought, yeah, no, I mean, I was blown away by the mixing of this album again. Like you always impressed me there, you know, and it's been a little while, I think, well, not a little while, but it's been a year or two since I've heard new Peri urban music, right? Because the other one was a band record, I think. And I can't remember as Octomictopus. Is that a band as well, or is that no? It's Peri urban.
That's
I
a
was
Peri
thinking
urban
of the one
one,
before
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I was thinking of the one before that one, but yeah, because I still, for whatever reason, I think I told you this before, Peri urban is my favorite music of yours.
Yeah.
Right. It always speaks to me more. I always find the band I like, but there's always a song or two where I feel like I'm just like a little too rock and roll, you know, which is not a problem. It just,
no, I know.
I'm a weirdo.
I know.
And I listen to a lot of rock music. It's just, I just, you know, the song that I fell in love with from you is that one that, I forget the name of the song now. It's a very simple song. I think it's on your GHS record or something like that, or it's back then, but it's the one it's one of those videos you had that was censored with the flesh, nudity and all the octopus. The Flesh, that was the one. Yeah. You know, and that's still like still the side of your tonality I gravitate towards, you know. Not that I don't mind, like I really enjoyed Hotel Messerschmitt. Am I saying that properly?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if, you know.
Messerschmitt, yeah, that's it.
You know, it's probably my favorite band record I've listened to all the way through so far. So it makes you want to listen to more band, you know. But the Granny definitely did it for me in so many places. There's only a handful of songs where I felt the urge to skip. I resisted the urge, but I felt the urge. Like I felt like I'm looking at the time, going like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy the song. And then often it would change. I'd change my mind by the end of the song. And I'm pretty sure if I went back and listened to it 3 or 4 more times, those songs would become my favorite, which is often the case, right? Because usually a song that bores you is a song you don't get. It's not because there's something wrong with the song. It just isn't grabbing you right away. And I say bore. Bore's not the word. It's just, you know, when you know what it's like when you're trying to like really enjoy a song and you're just not enjoying it.
Yeah, of
and
course.
You just feel like you want to skip it.
Yeah, all the time. It happens all the time. Even with stuff I love, I'll be like, I know where this is going. Skip.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
You know, but like for me, it was, like Boy Adrift. I was kind of like a little weird about it, but by the end of the song with the clapping and whatnot at the end, I was like, I'm liking this song a lot. And then Inquisitor, that was one I knew, and I enjoyed that a lot more the second time, or I shouldn't say, this wasn't the second time I listened to it, but it was, I think I listened to it 3 or 4 times when you asked me to demo it, but I wasn't paying attention to the music as much as I was paying attention to the EQ.
Sure.
And I was just trying different stereos to make sure that, you know, I was giving you a good answer. And Tortoise and D, I made no notes about that one, so I don't know what happened with that one. But I remember, like, probably because it didn't pull anything out of me, or maybe I got distracted. But Trumperillo, that one is where it really started to grab me. The crazy weird trumpet sounds and the synth bass and the way like the low end is super tight in there. And again with the tom rolls and the clapping again, I thought it was great. Like it was really good use of clapping. I know that claps are all over the place sometimes. I don't often use them, but I do use them sparingly, and I think clap is a very powerful sound when used properly. You know.
Well, there's a great little. I think it's a free download. It's called the Hand Clapper, and it gives you all of the options you would want. How many people do you want clapping? Do you want them tight or separated? Yeah.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah. That's what that is.
Nice. Let's check that out because Easy Drummer 3 has some of that in it. Over like if you look on the right side, they have like the 3 options.
Yeah.
And I think the third one you can open up. It's got hand claps, and you can have like I think up to 4 people clapping. It's probably not as versatile as the hand claps app, but that's where I get my claps from. Either I do a real clap or I use Easy Drummer, use their preloaded claps.
Yeah.
But I think I've only ever put claps in one song before. I think so. It's not like I've done it too often.
It's just when you need that party atmosphere.
Yeah.
I think there's actually I think there's stomps at the end of Boy Adrift as well, which come from
that could have been
Easy Drummer. Yeah, the stomps on the UK pop section, which is a percussion technique that was invented, I believe, by Slade. They were the ones who used that, and it's you hear it on their records, and it's what a great idea, because it's like the football terraces, the clapping and the stamping on the football terraces. That's where it comes from, really.
Well, it's funny. One time I used stomping in my song. I was trying to imitate the sound of marching soldiers, like SS soldiers coming down the street. So it was a little not nearly as positive as the clapping.
You can make that effect with a shoebox filled with gravel.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, just one drop. It sounds like
sounds like 100 men marching.
Nice. There you go.